Got it. So today we have Sarab Al-Ani from Yale, and she's going to tell us about virtual escape rooms. Thank you so much for being with us, Sarab, today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Let me start by thanking you and the team for having me in this webinar and welcoming everyone. We could see when we started and people started coming in that some of us, maybe most of us, are coming here right after class. So thank you for taking the time to join us. So just as Shannon said, we're going to be talking about a game that we can use for education, which is Escape the Room game, digital Escape the Room game. Before we start and before I start sharing my screen, can you, like with an emoji or a show of hands, tell me if you already know what Escape the Room game is? This might make it easier. Okay, some people do. I can see some thumbs. Oh, excellent. And some hands. Oh, right. Excellent, excellent. Oh, very good, fantastic. I can see that a lot of us are familiar with it. So this helps me to know that I'm going to keep the introduction part a little shorter and maybe focus towards a little bit towards the technical part. Thank you so much. All right, I'm ready to start and share. So the title of the presentation of today is Easy to Make and Fun to Break, Virtual Escape the Room game. First of all, let's start from the beginning, but real short since most of you are familiar with it. So this game itself, Escape the Room game, started as a recreational game activity in Japan in 2004, and it was successful and it was a hit. And it slowly but surely made its way around the world. And if you are familiar a little bit with the culture in Japan, they are very big on like games and recreational games for both, adults and the young ones. The whole idea, very quickly, as I said, since most of you are familiar with it, is that it's a kind of an activity in which there's a number of participants. It's usually a group activity. It's not a solo person kind of game, where this group is confined together in a place, in a space, in a room, and they're kind of locked or trapped in that room. And the whole idea is that they need to escape. And to be able to escape and to be able to like free themselves, they need to finish and complete a number of tasks or challenges or brain teasers. That's how it all started. And of course, the game itself, since it started, it had a number of variations. The room is not necessarily a room. Sometimes it's outdoors, but yet still there are tasks that need to be completed in a certain order in order to get to that end result task kind of thing. As we said, the game itself actually started just as a recreational game, and very soon it found its way to the education field. Educators found that including the knowledge and the skill that the learners need to master, they need to learn in designing a game is going to add like a bonus to them. So they said, okay, we're going to take this game, whatever it is, whatever materials that the students need to learn, we're going to use it and design the game. And this way, of course, it's learning without learning, right? The students are learning without consciously knowing that they are learning. In addition to the fact that they're using the skill and the knowledge that the students need to learn, but by the students working together, of course, we are going to get all the teamwork, all the leadership, the creative thinking, the collaboration, the communication, the problem solving, all of these side effects, if you will, of playing the game that is also looked upon favorably in the world of education. So it seemed like a perfect fit, and surely soon enough, the game was adopted into the world of education. As a matter of fact, in the year 2015, and maybe some of you are familiar with this company, the company Breakout EDU was established. And basically what they did is they took the concept of the game of escaping and started creating and designing educational games. And because, of course, it's not practical necessarily to lock a number of learners in a room. They did it in another way where the part of escaping or unlocking is in a box, and that box has either the prize or the treasure or the thing that they were working towards. And the company is still there, and of course you can visit them on their website. And when you go to visit them on their website, you can find a number of resources, and some of the resources are free while others are not. And the games are designed for a number of classes between math and science and languages and history, et cetera, et cetera. Now, Escape the Room for Language Education, as I said, the company itself, Breakout EDU, created games for a number of classes. But when we look at Escape the Room for language classes and for language education, we can see that it was particularly tempting to use, because if designed correctly, this type of game will have the learners use the 3 modes of communication. They can use the interpretive mode when they are trying to use the tasks and the clues to understand what it is that they need to do and how. They can use presentational communication when they have to share information with each other, and definitely interpersonal when they're collaborating with their teammates in order to solve the task, of course, all in the target language. So far, it seems like a perfect fit. In addition to that, they're doing all of this in a spontaneous, non-rehearsed kind of manner. So it's like, this is exactly what we would like them to do. Of course, it is a game, so that aspect of the game itself is going to increase their motivation and engaging in this type of communication. So the game itself is not only a great fit for education as such, but specifically for language education because of all of these features that it offers. So obviously the game was adapted into language education as well. From its very start with Breakout EDU, there was always 2 ways that the game can be played. An actual physical way to play the game where people are in a room locked, let's say, or there is an actual physical box that is locked, with locks, and people would solve the tasks in order to find keys and open the box. But there was always a digital game as well. And that was one of the updates that the game had after it started, where everything was happening in the digital world. Whether it's the room itself or the task themselves, the clues, everything that the players needed to do was being done in the digital world. So it was by no means a new thing. But of course, what happened in the last 2 years, since we all started, living and teaching and working in the digital world, then the kind of drive and the motivation to use digital escape the room games increased even more. The just basic kind of components into what it is. If I thought to myself, okay, I want to design a escape the room for my class, what is it that I need? What are the pillars that I need to design that game? First of all, you have to have a theme. And for us in language education, we use themes often anyway, so that's not very hard. Of course, there has to be clues, and clues are what the players, the learners, are going to use to start with to be able to complete the tasks. Hence, we definitely need to have tasks. And in that theme and with these clues that we find and in these tasks that we're trying to accomplish, there has to be a storyline. Like, why are we doing this anyway? Where are we, and why are we doing this, and what is it that we're trying to accomplish at the end? So all these things kind of tie in together. And of course, in that game, when it's played, especially for educational purposes, the the recommendation is always to start the game by telling your learners what the storyline is. And of course, when you think about it, the fact that you are going to be doing this in the target language, you can see that then there's an added language input. And this is going to put everyone in the mood. So, and also they have an expectation of what it is that they need to do and how and what are they targeting to do. Of course, we also have to have an escape path. So these tasks that they need to complete and that the clues are helping them to do, and they need to be arranged in such a way that one kind of leads to the other. And in the end, eventually, they would be able to escape. And of course, most importantly, is that there is a great exit so that at the end, when they do escape, they realize that, yeah, they are, they did it. They got to where they did. The box is open physically, or the door is open physically. But digitally, it's maybe a little bit more important to plan this great exit so that students or the learners would know that they achieved the task. When it comes to the storyline itself, as I said, it's important to have that. It's going to be like the basis of the whole game itself. So some of the questions that we can ask ourselves when we create the storyline is, first of all, where are we? What is this game or activity taking place? What are we supposed to do? Why are we trapped? And how did we get trapped in the first place? How much time do we have in order to do this? Is there another team? And the idea of the time and the team could be related together, because the game itself could be set up where students have to, or they're trying to escape or trying to reach the end by a certain time. At the same time, there is another way where the game ends when one of the teams finishes first. So there are these two variations that are part of the storyline. And then depending on how exciting you want the game to be, you could also have like, well, what happens if we didn't escape? Like there's something that's going to happen, so we need to escape. We need to be able to finish this in time. Okay. So before we go on, as we said, we're going to go into a breakout room and kind of try out this game. Just try it out from the user end. Nothing stressful, just for you to see what it is like. But before we go, let me give you a little bit of an introduction about it. First of all, when we go and we see how escape the room game has been used for the world of education, you will be able to see that there are some designs that are really quite intricate and have a number of steps into them. And you can see that educators have devoted a lot of time and a lot of thinking into it and resources. And just like any game, you can design it to be as complicated as you would like or as easy as you would like. One of the things that I tried to do when I use escape the room games is not to have it so very complicated, because I was thinking I need to use it like in a class kind of setting, so it wouldn't help me if it were too complicated. In addition to that, I don't necessarily have a lot of resources to spend in terms of money. So I wanted it to be something that I can make in an easy way and definitely free. And also I didn't want it to be so time consuming for myself. I knew that if it was going to be something that will take a lot of time for me to do, then most likely I will not be able to do it as often as I would like. So these are definitely some of the things that I personally was thinking about when I adapted these games. However, that's not the case everywhere. I have seen educators that devote whole websites to their games and the creation of their games. We are starting a little bit on the simple side. Okay, so I'm going to tell you now a little bit about this game that you can see here before you start kind of playing around with it and experimenting with it. This is a game that I had created for my elementary level class. I teach Arabic, by the way, And our elementary classes are actually true novices. They start with zero knowledge of the word. So when they do start learning the language, we are, at least in the beginning, operating in a word level and a phrase level, and memorize phrases. So this game, and the theme of which is Halloween, as you can see, is designed for elementary students, and the answers that are expected are on the word level and on a phrase level. All of the clues that you will see are all images. Again, we know that images are very important for novice learners. And in addition to that, the whole premise of the game is not complicated at all, because at the beginning, we have very, very little language to work with. Okay, so here's what we are going to do. I am going to have to first stop the share. Then I will grab a link and put it in the chat. After I grab the, and please go ahead and use it to get to the room. Then we are going to go to breakout rooms, and don't be stressed. Just explore. Give it a few clicks, see what you see, and meanwhile, when you have any questions or observations, or try it. I did, by the way, add translation in English to this particular link that I'm sharing with you, because I know you're going to be using it. So see, maybe you can, I don't know, answer a question or two. And if not, don't worry about
Sarab,
it.
which is that the when we click the link, it tells us you need access. So I think maybe you need to share it.
Yes, I can do that.
Here.
Yeah. Yes, because, yeah.
We'll put the link in the chat again in just 1 second once she adjusts those sharing settings.
Yes, absolutely. I will need a minute to make sure that everyone with the link can use it, rather than just in my institute, because that's probably the previous settings.
Probably.
Okay, yeah. And now anyone with the link. Done.
Yeah, now I see it. So I'm going to put that link.
Now, does it work now?
I see a slide presentation with the Halloween thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought I will need to create a new link.
Well, although I only see one slide, is that how it should be?
Yes, it is one slide, correct. That is absolutely accurate.
Okay, so I think this is the link.
Yeah.
Is everybody getting to it?
Yeah, let us know if you can access it. Click on it, let us know if it works.
And then Sarab, would you like me to do breakout rooms now?
Sure. And
so
it's going to be, it's going to be only for like 10 minutes, just to play around and kind of casually explore.
So I'm going to create breakout rooms just randomly. And what Sarab said is that if you have questions as you're playing around with it, maybe you could write those down and then bring them back when we come back to the main room in 10 minutes. We're going to pause the recording and then restart it once we come back. So I'm going.
Okay, so tip number 1, check your sharing settings. But second, so this is the room that you are in. And maybe you were able to see that when you move the mouse at certain points, the cursor turns into a hand. And every time the cursor turns into a hand, this is something that you can click. And with every click, you're going to get something. So over here, as I said, all the clues were images for this particular game, because it was a game that is designed for elementary. And now also here, usually what happens in these games when people are in a room, trapped in a room, but the first thing they will try to do is the door. So as you can see here, when you go and you try to unlock the door, what is going to happen is that it's going to take you to a form, which unfortunately I couldn't change the setting to make it shareable. But so this door takes us to a form, and then this door takes us to another form. So each one of these forms is a Google form. And what happens is that by the use of the images that are the clues, what you need to do is answer a number of questions, and answering each question takes you to the following question until the very last one will take you to the final piece of information that will unlock the door. Now, I'm going to stop the share and go back to my PowerPoint to explain how is it that we can actually make this happen. So first of all, as I said, I was trying to do this in a way that is, easy for me. And obviously we are all, most of us are familiar with Google Suite. So I use Google Suite to create the whole thing. Let me go to the presentation setting. So the first thing is that it's Google Suite, and that makes it easier because we are familiar with it to a certain extent. The room itself starts with that big picture, as you can see, and onto that big picture, I added other smaller ones, such as the one of the spider here that you can see. So now adding the clues starts by selecting that image and then inserting a link. And this is how you make your clues. And you could see that all the clues that I used in this particular game were images, but they don't all have to be images. Whatever it is that you want to link to your game, you can. It can be a website, it can be a video, a little article, whatever it is that you think of, you can. So this is step number one, which is setting the clues. So step number two is the escape path, which, as you could see, was a Google form. And then in here, it's important to add those little bits of information that clarify the whole thing. So for instance, here, we are all trapped in this haunted castle. In order to leave the haunted castle, you have to find the key. And in order for you to find the key, you must answer the question who she is, kind of like a password that will give you the key. In the picture itself, in the castle, is all the clues you need. All you have to do is move your mouse and click, and then each correct clue will help you answer a question, and then each question will get you closer to the answer. The second Google form is the one where once I input that last piece of information, then I'm going to have the great escape. Now, how to set that up as far as the Google Forms is concerned, the first thing we're going to do is make sure that the type of question to use is a short answer, because with this type of question, what I can do is I can have use the feature response validation. This is the feature that will enable me to create it in a way that students cannot go, or learners cannot go to the next question before answering the first question correct. And that's how we create the escape path. Now, in order to do that, I need to make sure that I input the answers, because I have to input the answers ahead of time. And to input the answers, I can choose a number or a text or other kinds. All the ones that I have used were text, or most of the time I would use a text. And to use that text, I can select the option to make sure that it contains exactly a number of words. This way, the answer, they have to get this answer in order for them to be able to move on to the second answer. So I need to pick the option contains, and then I put in the answer itself. So here the question, where does she study? And one of the clues, if you clicked on it, was the picture of a university, and the answer that they need to input is in the university. Only when they input this exact answer will they be able to move on. I can also add a clue So let's say they're trying and they're going to type something and it's not working. I can add a clue to help them move into the direction of the correct answer. And in this clue, you can make it, as easy as you want, and you can make it as challenging as you want. So here I only says that the answer has 3 words, but you can give a stronger hint if you feel like it. And of course, I did this all here in English because of this presentation, but of course you can definitely use the target language. The other thing is, of course, we have to make sure that all the questions are required and then have each question be its own section in order for the game to progress from one section to the other. So this is like a key thing that helps us create this escape path. And the one that you saw had like a Halloween theme, but this is of course by no means the only theme. This one is another game that I created, and this one had restaurant theme. I'm going to stop the share for 1 minute and then take us to that game so we can take a look at it and see what that one looks like. Here we go. The idea is the same. This is again a Google slide. And in here, as you can see, every time I move my cursor, there is, when it changes into a hand, it's going to take me somewhere new. So here, the form, this time in the piece of information that they need to input in order to escape is actually not a text, but it is numbers. So that is something that is possible, that you can have numbers instead of words. The links themselves, they take you, sometimes they take you to a picture here. And of course, you can imagine the amount of authentic resources that you can use as links, be it images or videos, YouTube videos or articles. This makes it very easy to use authentic resources in this way. And of course, as this one I created for an intermediate class, which means we are dealing with a lot more language, and it is easier to use authentic resources that have like rich language. In addition to that, over here, as you can see, there is a timer. The timer is built into the game and it moves down. So it tells them how much time they have left before they try to escape. If that time is up before they could escape, it means they were not able to successfully escape the room. And one thing that you can do, or one thing that is best done in these type of games, is that when you try to imagine the whole thing as a scenario or like a big role play, and that escape is part of the scenario and the role play. And this, when you try to imagine it like that, this helps make it easier to pick the kind of questions that you are trying to use to solve this game. So for instance, in this game, the scenario was that the group of friends were in a restaurant, and after having a dinner, they discovered that they didn't have enough money to pay for it. And what they needed is to answer a bunch of questions so that they get the numbers to a card that they can use to pay. So putting all the pieces together makes it easier to tie it in. And then part of the clues was the restaurant itself, the name of the restaurant, and another clue is the menu. And then they order from the menu, but they need to see what food costs what, and they put it all together. And the more elaborate the role play, the easier it is to create the questions. I will stop again. Meanwhile, if anybody has questions, I think this is a good spot to try and answer some questions.
There's been one so far in the chat, which is how to add the timer to the slide.
Yes, that's a very good question. I'm going to go back. I'm just going to try to share. The timer itself was a video from YouTube. And the way you add it in is by embedding the video on the slide, just like you would embed the image. By the way, in the games that I have created, all of the links are links into somewhere online, either a video on YouTube or an image or an article. I have seen instructors who have created the whole game in one big Google presentation, and the links then end up being to another slide within the presentation rather than into the internet as a whole. And they did that for a number of reasons. One of the reasons was to make it a little bit easier and a little bit contained, as they wanted all the information to be contained in the slide. So, and also easier to make if you are using the links from within the same presentation. So that too is another variation. And then in turn, as far as the timer, that could be another way to include the timer by linking it to another slide. I don't know if there was another question or someone.
There was a follow-up about the timer. Does the timer just run out? It just runs out at the end?
Yes, so what happens is, yeah, when the time runs out, then at the end, there's like for this particular one, there is a bell sound, and the students will be able to hear the bell sound, even if they were not on that slide. You know how every time you click, a new window opens? So even if you were not on that same window that you started with, which is the room, they would still be able to hear the bell. And when you do a quick search on YouTube for the countdown timers, you'll see that there are a number of timers. Some of them will have an image that changes, while others have both the image and the sound. And there are times for different lengths, starting, I think, from 5 minutes all the way to an hour. This, as you can see, was closer to 45 minutes, which is kind of closer to a regular class session, a little bit shorter than a regular class session. And one thing that one can do, if you are a little bit worried about how much time it would take, of course, definitely the first thing is, having a limited number of questions, but also having a number of collaborators work together in one team usually makes it easier for them to be able to escape the room quicker. This was another Halloween game. And the idea is the same. The room itself is the big picture, and then every small picture was added, and to that smaller picture, the clue was added, or the Google form that would then be the escape. I don't know if there were any other questions or comments, or if anyone wants to add anything.
Somebody asks, what does it look like when they escape?
Okay, that is a very good question. Here's what I'm going to do. I will stop this share and I will show you exactly, because actually the Great Escape is part of what we want to do, not only the Great Escape, but the whole process. So let me take you to it and show you exactly what it looks like. Okay, I need to go to the questions. All right. So this is one form. I will open the other form and you will see what it looks like. So So for the questions, every time they get the question right, they see this image. And after seeing this image, they then can move to the second question. Of course, I'm showing you the form as I was creating it. So at the end of each question, they will be able to see this image, which then leads them to the following question. When they are done, like we're going to go all the way down. They're done and they answered the last question accurately. What I did here is add like a few sentences that are telling them about this person. This is the person that they were looking for the whole time. And then part of the information is her name. I added her name here in English, of course, for this presentation. Then what they need to do is take her name and put it in this one in order to escape. And then when they do escape, this is the image that they will see. And then this person is like opening the door for them and then telling them, okay, you got it, now you can leave. And that's a very good question, because it is important for them to know that they actually did it and they were able to escape successfully. Very good question, thank you. And
someone asked, how do you explain the instructions for the game? And I also wondered,
yes.
if you're having students do it during class, what happens if one group gets it quickly, much more quickly than the others? What do you have a strategy for that?
Yes, both great questions. So for the game that was designed for the beginner class or the elementary class, I had to explain it in English, of course, because they don't know that much of the target language to be able to explain it. But for instance, as far as the one with the restaurant is concerned, this was an intermediate, mid to an intermediate high class, and it was not difficult to explain the role play kind of and the game itself in the target language. And usually that's what you want to start the game with, is explaining to them, you know, what is happening, where they are, why are they trapped, and what it is that they need to do. And as far as the time is concerned, so yes, so they have like, let's say 45 minutes to finish it, but also it is the case that if one finishes sooner, let's say within half an hour, the game is over, since that team did win. And usually after using this a couple of times, you can kind of gauge how much time students are likely to take, you know, give or take. It's not going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but give or take 5 minutes, you could gauge how it is. And then let's say that you had like 3 or 4 teams, and one team was indeed successful in finishing it within 30 minutes, whereas you had 45. One thing that can also happen is to bring everyone back together and try to go through the questions like, hey, what happened? How were you able to figure this out? And how were you able to figure that out? And we can go through it, which is another opportunity, you know, to use the target language, and then maybe to fill in the other teams who, like, let's say, had a clue and struggled with it and didn't know how to use it. It's like, hey, this is what you have to do, and this is how we did it, and this is how we got to the answer to the question. And that ends up being fun too, because they're like, oh, a lot of time it's like an aha moment. Oh, this is what I had to do. I had to go and figure out how much this cost in the menu so I can add it. Which brings me to another point. This kind of game that has like a number of tasks and a number of clues, and the learners, the players have to work together in order to work it out. There will be some challenges, and there will be like minor frustrations and setbacks, and it's like, oh, I'm trying to figure it out, but I can't. So if you're not comfortable with that kind of thing, then you might want to make your game easier. But this is actually, it's part of the design of the game that would help the students to communicate when they can't figure it out. So they have to negotiate with one another to figure it out. That's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing that kind of forces them to get out of the comfort zone and try to work together in order to make that happen. And this is not something that I personally had to use, because I don't design the games to be extremely complicated. But for those educators who do add a level of complication, they also add the possibility for the learners to ask for 3 hints. If they feel that they were stumped, and they're not able to work it out together, or they're not able to fit the correct clue to the correct task, and hence use it to complete the task, they can ask 3 different times. They can ask the instructor or the person in charge for the game for a clue that would help them. Then the clue would not like solve the question for them, or would not tell them exactly what to do, but just something to get them a little closer. And as far as language is concerned, and especially for the more advanced levels, a clue that is also created in the target language would definitely, be another input for them. And so then what they would have to do is like take that clue and then use that in order to be able to finish the task. So that's another thing that this one also helps with the element of time, but from the other perspectives, what if it was taking them too long and they were not able to finish it? Then the clue would help kind of speed the process up a little. Thank you for the good questions. Were there any other questions in the chat?
Someone asked about the audio clues. Were there audio clues that you used?
I most of the time use video because I prefer to couple the image with the audio, especially when I want to use authentic resources. So most of the time it's videos and not, only audios. I think I saw another question. Was there another question?
How many clues do you suggest having in a game for basic level? Someone asked.
For 10, I think 10 is a good number to start with. From my experience, I've made some with more and I've made some with less. And I think 10 is a very good number to start with. But also, I have to say, part of it also depends on your learners' attitudes. We have this group that are very enthusiastic about learning a game, and those end up being very good at it and hence finishing it quickly. But generally speaking, for elementary, I think 10 is a very good number, at least to start with, and to gauge how active your group is and how involved, how collaborative they are. And then based on that, maybe you can make it a little bit longer or a little bit shorter. But 10 is definitely the number I go with.
Someone asked, do you create the images or do you find them somewhere?
All the images I found, they're all online, and then I would get the link, the address link to the image itself and use that. I did not create. The only thing, like in the room itself, the image is there. All I do is add the smaller images onto it in order for me to be able to link it to another source. But no, I did not create all the images. They're all there. All I do is search for them and find them. Let me see, were there other questions? Yeah, I think this was the last question. And within this hour, if you, first of all, I do have a PDF of the presentation. I know that sometimes, as far as I am concerned personally, when I go back and take a look at things a little bit slower, it helps. I'm going to stop the share for 1 second, and I'm going to see if I can share with you a PDF.
I just shared that PDF that you had sent.
Excellent, excellent.
So I think it's her slides, right, Sarab?
Correct. Because
so that you can go back and take a look at them again.
Yes, because I was not able to share because with this, at first it seems a little bit overwhelming, and it seems like there are too many steps. But the moment you just sit and try it with without being rushed or anything, you will see it's not that difficult. And one of the things that I also did and that I found helpful is, especially as far as the forms are concerned, once I created the form with, as we said, all these specifications of the reply, and then making sure that one question moves to the other, once you have the first one created, what you can do is make a copy of it and then modify the copy to create a different game. This will lessen the steps that you have to change every time in order to adjust the questions and have them move from one to the other. So basically your first one is going to be like your template that you can use and modify over and over again in order to create different games. Same thing with the images, and you change the question itself, change the answer itself, and maybe change the images. And you probably noticed that I kept the image the same in the room itself, in the presentation, and then in the forms to kind of like tie in the theme together and have that sort of unity feeling. And one thing maybe you can also see, and another way that you can make the game either easier or harder, is where you put your clues. So for instance, over here, just by looking at it, you can probably see that there are, like shapes that stick out. So that is kind of like an easy, obvious way to, to put a clue. Definitely this arrow here is going to be a clue, and this heart is a clue where, as at the same time in the room, there are clues that are hidden. For instance, in this picture, there is actually a clue that is hidden that would be harder to find. So this way you can also vary the difficulties of what it is that some are right there in the front of them, and they're going to try and go and click on it right away, where others are hidden. So for instance, this picture has a hidden clue, and this coffee cup has a hidden clue. Or on the other hand, if you want, you can make all of them or most of them easily visible, especially if you are concerned with the time element. There are many ways to vary this in terms of ease or difficulty.
Well, thank you so much for showing us this. And it seems like a very fun thing to do either in class or maybe for like a game night or something like that, that you could organize with your students.
Exactly, or like a review, if there's like a fun way to review, for instance, or to recall. And in addition to the slides, when you want to go and take a look at it, maybe in a little bit more detail, I invite you to read this article where in which I have like basically the same information I was conveying to you, but with a little bit more details. The PDF that you got has a live link to it. I invite you to read it, and you'll be able to have a little bit more detailed way of understanding these games and how to make them. These are also some of the resources that I just mentioned, and there's like a ton of research that shows how these games can be helpful for language education. Perhaps the most important point is the fact that it's collaborative and it has this like spontaneity of communication. I don't know if we had another question. Oh, yes, the PDF. Yes, and thank you for sending the PDF because I was not able to send it actually.
One person asked, could you give some more examples of clues?
Yes, absolutely. Let me stop the share for 1 minute and then go back to all right. Over here. Okay, let's see. We're gonna go with this one. So over here, images are like probably the one that we saw the most. This one is a YouTube. And the thing about YouTube, here, I'm gonna wait for here we go. the thing about YouTube is that it gives you like great authentic resources. And in there, the important thing in there is that you don't, generally speaking, you don't really have time for students to like listen to a lot and try to get into a very specific information. So if you are using videos, one of the things that you can do is make sure that the piece of information that they're trying to elicit does not have them listen to a lot or try to figure out a lot. This is another clue that is an image. Over here, as I told you, the coffee cup was a hidden clue that took them to another YouTube. And you could see, you know, it's very easy to add authentic resources when it comes to YouTube. I think one of them was also a menu. Now I need to find the.
And so when they
clues.
have those YouTube videos, what do they do? Are they listening
Yes.
for something to answer a question?
Yes, so one of the questions will be, so for instance, this particular video, it says, which country has the best shawarma? And one of the questions asked, which country has the best shawarma? And when you listen to the video, within the first 20 seconds, what this person does is he does food vlogs, and what this person does is he travels from city to city, and within the first 15 to 20 seconds, he would say, "Oh, X city has the best shawarma," which is exactly the question that they need to answer. So it's not too hidden. It's not too difficult to extract. However, they still need to listen and comprehend and be able to find that piece of information. Let me see, over here. Oh, this one was another video. This is a video of a different nature. I mean, people conversing, and then around food, they're talking about food. And here, the students also have to listen to a specific piece of information. This one has to do with like kind of mannerisms of serving tea, for instance, with a relevant question that they would have to answer after observing the interaction between the people in the video. Another infograph is another, I think, in my opinion, is another great link, because infograph, just like video couples, the language with the image, so does the infograph. It couples the language with the image. And in an intermediate, for an intermediate class, that's kind of a perfect combination. You have a little bit more of language, but you still have the image that also helps. So for instance, this is different famous dessert that are made in different Arab countries. And then the question is about a specific, and the country that they come from and what they are called. And then the question is about a specific dessert and which country they come from. They either have to identify the country, for instance, or they have to identify the name of that dessert. And let me see if I can find this. This, as we saw, this is the form, this is the door, basically. Then this is, they have to input the code in order for them to be able to escape. I don't remember if there are other clues or if we have other questions.
Well, I think we ran out of time and we don't really have any more questions, but thank you so much, Sarab, for showing us this cool idea. I'm definitely going to consider doing this for my next board game night with the students that I organize sometimes. And I just want to let everyone know that our next webinar is December 7th, and it's going to be a roundtable on language placement and credentialing. So I think that will be something interesting for a lot of people. Share around the registration link. Thank you so much, Sarab, for your time and your expertise today.
My pleasure. Thank you guys for having me, and thank you for attending.